Proszę Państwa, i teraz zgodnie z zapowiedzią zapraszam na spotkanie z autorem filmu, Jeffreyem Perkinsem. Wielkie brawa. Proszę bardzo. Tutaj mikrofon.
Gee, I really like this film, and it's a great privilege to show it here in Poland, and I think this is a first, in fact. So, there was an attempt to do something in Poland. Eric Anderson came here and did a radio show, but there wasn't much else going on. Although there are Fluxus artists or artists who do Fluxus work here, and so it's not, it's a long film. It's 2 hours, of course. However, I mean, I produced this film, and I had a great editor with Jesse Stead. We had a good relationship, and I brought her all the material, and she did play with it, and it's pretty dynamic. I feel satisfied that I was able to do justice to the spirit and wildness and anarchy, although it wasn't just anarchy. I mean, so I shouldn't explain too much. Why don't you ask something? So, or if there are any questions here, I'm always eager to talk about this film.
So. Może ja zadam pierwsze pytanie, ale Gosiu, przetłumaczysz?
Tak, cóż, no, mieliśmy tutaj do czynienia z dość długim materiałem filmowym, 2 godziny, i przyda mi się tych kilka refleksji, które usłyszeliśmy teraz od autora, który powiedział przede wszystkim, że było to dla niego bardzo satysfakcjonujące, by oddać hołd tej pewnej dzikości i anarchii. Właściwie nie była to chyba dokładnie anarchia tak naprawdę, tylko właśnie coś, dlaczego trudno znaleźć słowo. Może właśnie Państwo odniesiecie się do tego, jak odebraliście postać Maciunasa tak nakreśloną przez Perkinsa.
I tutaj jeszcze Jeffrey takie ukłony dla montażystki swojej wyraził, bo rzeczywiście mnóstwo materiału, który został tutaj brawurowo połączony. To zanim jeszcze Państwu oddam głos, chciałbym Jeffreya wykorzystać i zapytać o jego kontakty z George'em Maciunasem, kiedy go poznał, jak wyglądały właśnie te spotkania.
What were your contacts with Maciunas? When did you meet him? How your meetings looked like?
Yes, very interesting. It goes to Yoko Ono, which was the reason I'm here. In fact, Anna invited me to come because she heard that I was friends with Yoko, am friends with Yoko. And it was, in fact, Yoko that brought me to meet George Maciunas. When I moved, I shared an apartment with Yoko and her husband, their child, and so she brought me down to meet George in his apartment. And what's extraordinary is that and these great drag pictures of George, those are self-portraits, and they were secret for a long time. They only appeared in a book by Thomas Kalheim, who was a museum director maybe in Germany, and a book called The Dream of Fluxus. And that's the first time I ever saw those pictures. And I didn't know George was, doing that. Those were self-portraits, and they were shot in the same year that I met him in that same room. So when I saw those, I said, oh my God, that was George. So he... and he did a lot of them. He did many different costumes as a woman. The thing is that George also lived with his mother in that same apartment on West Broadway in Soho, and she lived there many times. She also came to be a secretary of Joseph Stalin's daughter, who was living in Florida. And that was odd. However, she was a Russian. She danced in Russia. I'm not sure if she may have been Lithuanian dancer and performed in Russia.
Tak, to spotkanie odbyło się oczywiście poprzez Yoko Ono w jej mieszkaniu. To właśnie ona zapoznała Jeffreya z Maciunasem. Nie wiem, czy tłumaczyć więcej.
No tam, dobrze, mnóstwo informacji.
Tak, jest bardzo wiele tych. Proszę Państwa, jest mi ciężko zapamiętać, przyznam szczerze, te wszystkie informacje, gdyż te wypowiedzi są właśnie dłuższe, a nie będę prosiła gościa, aby je dzielił na fragmenty. Wspomniał o takich zapomnianych pracach Maciunasa, z którymi miał okazję się zetknąć chyba w apartamentach Yoko Ono, o ile dobrze zrozumiałam, które były jego autoportretami, chyba właśnie w kobiecych przebraniach. Tak? Dream of Fluxus, taki był tytuł tych prac. Mało znane lub w ogóle nieznane, które właśnie Jeffrey miał okazję oglądać, tę bardziej kobiecą naturę Maciunasa, o której dowiedzieliśmy się także z filmu. Wspomniał też o matce artysty, rosyjskiej tancerce, z którą Maciunas mieszkał w tamtym okresie, kiedy właśnie poznali się przez Yoko Ono.
So the impression I have of this, in this great projection, by the way, congratulations, it was really good projection. And I was sitting right in front. I liked to be in it. I have the impression that, well, there hasn't been another feature film about Fluxus and George Maciunas. And Fluxus was totally unique. And I think it comes across in the film that it is such a crazy story and all of the madness that keeps happening. And I feel rewarded that I did it. And I am a Fluxus affiliate, and I have done performances, and I still am active in a certain way. And I like to keep it alive because the spirit of the work is generative and inspiring. So it kind of liberated me. So, I was writing in my journal about Fluxus on the plane coming to Europe, and I think I wrote that Fluxus is freedom. And I think that's what it inspired. And why younger artists now respected Fluxus and continue to be inspired by the freedom that it suggests. It's... it didn't try to explain itself either. So what is Fluxus? That kept happening in the film to ask what is Fluxus. And there's a good deal of scholarship about Fluxus now, and it's part of scholarship in most universities, in fact. I'm asking people, strangers, do you know what the word Fluxus is? Joseph Beuys, the famous German artist, got very, very taken by Fluxus. And after George died, Beuys and Namjoon Paik did a dual piano concert in Berlin, I think, or maybe it was Wiesbaden, which was dedicated to George Maciunas. And René Bloch produced it and made a record. So there's an LP of that concert by Beuys and Namjoon. So it impressed Beuys, but George was against Beuys, and he was opposed to Beuys because of Beuys's great success and his ego. And so George was a quirky guy. He was very militant and a commanding presence. That's the way it was when I met him. Fortunately, I had the opportunity to work with him, and I assisted him in an installation piece at a big nightclub in the West Village, which was called the Village Gate. And it was supposed to be a party for Timothy Leary, but I didn't see Timothy Leary at all, and there was nothing about Timothy Leary there. Maybe it was just Yoko that said that. But so I assisted George and we created a web of first string, a spider web above the audience, and we laid on adhesive tape with sticky side down on the string. We did that on 2 tall ladders. This was a big club with round tables, and so people were sitting at those tables while the Velvet Underground was performing with Gerard, and I'm sure, I don't know who was dancing with him. It wasn't Edie Sedgwick, but a woman, and so we did that. We put it all up, and at a certain point, George had arranged the string to an anchor point, so he cut the anchor point, and the string and all the tape fell on the audience. It was a kind of a naive, 60s idea, you know, sticking us all together and we'll all be one, etc. And but George was brilliant. I mean, he was a brilliant person, and I was in New York for 1 year when I met and worked with him, and yeah.
Tak, dzisiaj w tym dyskusji akademickim pojęcie fluxusu jest bardzo dobrze znane, więc to pytanie o definicję właściwie już jakby nie ma sensu. Pojawiło się to określenie szaleństwa madness, które chyba też tak wybrzmiało bardzo z tego filmu. Jeffrey wspomniał o swojej współpracy z Maciunasem, o projektach, które robili, jak na przykład w jednym z klubów nowojorskich, taką rodzaj pajęczej sieci skonstruowanej w klubie tanecznym z okrągłymi stolikami. W pewnym momencie sieci, która w pewnym momencie przecięta spadła, pokryła całą publiczność, czy też raczej po prostu bywalców klubu zasiadających w nim. To był rodzaj naiwnego eksperymentu, lata 60., jak tutaj właśnie Jeffrey ocenił, ale jednak to był właśnie jeden z tych pomysłów charakterystycznych dla fluxusu. Maciunas był błyskotliwą osobowością, tutaj właśnie usłyszeliśmy, przede wszystkim błyskotliwą osobowością, tak tutaj artysta go wspomina.
Ja jeszcze odnotuję, że reżyser na początku swojej wypowiedzi pochwalił projekcję. Zaznaczam, reżyser z Nowego Jorku i autor filmu pochwalił projekcję.
Tak,
to taka dedykacja do wszystkich, którzy narzekają na nasz projektor, okej?
Nie narzekamy.
Dobra.
This film has, you know, it was finished in 2018 with 7 screenings, which was unique, by the way, at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and they were big, you know, big room screenings, and it was a party, you know. There was performances before the screenings, and Weronika Czerjanska, who is not in the room now, is going to do a performance in a few minutes, and I promised her I wouldn't talk too long. She's going to perform downstairs, so you should try to stay around for that. She's a unique and talented artist, and in any case, I forget what I was saying, but I think that, oh yes, I was going to say the pandemic hit, and screenings, you know, screenings stopped. We had a screening at the BFI Festival in London before the pandemic really hit, and not many more. So you know, while I'm here in Europe, anyway, it's distribution of a documentary film, but this is, as far as I'm concerned, it's a masterpiece about Fluxus, and because it's so wild, and it's true. I mean, I didn't lie. It was, I dug deep in this production, so I think I got good stuff. The Namjoon Paik interview, which was astonishing, what he said. I mean, that was kind of an unexpected gift that one of my interns, her now husband, brought it to me, that the Woody and Stentor Visoka recorded that rare interview with Nam June Paik. And, I mean, you could see Nam June performing in the concerts when he painted with his head. And he was, I mean, Nam June was just a genius and crazy genius. And just like George. George was crazy, but he also knew that he was a genius. And the collector, Jean Brown, told me she met two geniuses in her life, and they were Marcel Duchamp and George Maciunas. So as crazy as George was, and he was Mr. Fluxus. He did it all. And it's rich.
Tak, film nie był zbyt szeroko dystrybuowany, ukończony w 2018 roku, ale wystawiony w Nowym Jorku, później jeszcze w Londynie, ale pandemia przerwała tę dystrybucję, jak Państwo słyszeliście, także myślę, że tutaj ta projekcja jest rzeczywiście takim, powrotem filmu do kina europejskiego, możemy powiedzieć, tak nieskromnie, może właśnie tak dodam. I wszystko w tym filmie jest prawdą, jak powiedział Jeffrey, chociaż jest to całkowite szaleństwo, ale tak właśnie jak zostało to pokazane, tak właśnie to wyglądało, łącznie z tą niezwykle szaleńczą, ale jednocześnie genialną postacią Maciunasa, równą być może tylko Duchampowi, było właśnie dwóch takich wielkich artystów, szaleńczych artystów, jak powiedział Jeffrey, to znaczy Duchamp i Maciunas. Maciunas był właśnie tym drugim z nich. Wspomniano tu także o tej niezwykle fascynującej postaci Pajka, która zamyka film w taki obłędny sposób. Jeffrey odniósł się także do niego, do jego performansów z tym malowaniem przy pomocy krawata, tak, znany performans, który został tutaj pokazany, który był również obłędny, ale właśnie absolutnie genialny.
Proszę Państwa, ponieważ też Jeffrey wspomniał o performansie Weroniki Trojańskiej o 19, który będzie mieć miejsce, także chciałbym dać Państwu teraz szansę też zadania pytania, skomentowania filmu. Czy ktoś chciałby zacząć?
Any questions?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, this is exactly what we asked for.
Oh.
Hello, my name is Paweł. I'm a director from Poland. Thank you very much for the movie.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. I've seen a lot of work here, and I've seen it in the end titles that you have almost like 3 or 4 people around you in the crew. Is it like this? Because I haven't seen a lot of people in the end titles, I mean from the crew. How the production was looking like?
The production. Well, I did it myself, really. The production was all legwork, and some people I knew, and there was a lot of post-production, so a lot of material came into the post-production process as well, making it, and it never had a producer. I paid for it. I paid for it by I had made a previous film that was much more rewarding because it was about an artist who made money in art. So I used also a good friend of mine. I managed to get a donation of money, but I essentially produced it. There was an executive producer, and that was my friend Joe Bogdanovich, who owed me a favor. So he gave me a gift of $35,000 and came so to finish the editing for the MoMA Festival. And when the festival happened, he lives in Jamaica, and he produces reggae music now. But he's, I knew him a lot in L.A., and he showed up for the premiere with 5 Jamaican diplomats, all very tall black men, and he demanded that I introduce them from, they all stood up, and, it was a grand style. That fellow Bogdanovich, he's charismatic. So anyway, it was made off the cuff. I mean, I just went for it. I realized the film with one word. I just finished the San Francisco film, and I was having a beer with my friend Christian Zatrek of the Emily Henry Foundation, and we're walking down the street, and it just hit me, George. And I said, wow, nobody did this. And I had learned how to make a doc film with the San Francis thing. So I immediately got on it and just went to the right places, including Jonas Mekas, who said, I will produce this film for you, and not only that, but I'll find you the money. And that was going to come from a real estate guy in Kiev. And that was a disaster, but somebody wanted to give me money, but they wanted to control the film. So I had to back out of that. And when that happened, I just kept working. And I mean, that's the only way to do it. I mean, once starts something, you just can't stop. You know, there's no way to, if you're an artist, you know what that means. I mean, no matter what kind of art you're doing, you just start and you have to get through it. And, you know, how to finish a painting, Bruce Nauman said this is the problem. But, and maybe this film is long. It's a 2 hours and something. So, and I was a little bit worried about that. And I would say to my editor, Jesse, you think we can end, you know, this is 2 hours. She said, no, this is good. We can do this. So she wanted to tell the whole story, and it was complex. And because I did a good research for this, I found some really good material and some online stuff. The Dada stuff was free. None of that was encumbered with the copyright. So that was an opportunity to get really good source material. So,
Tak, pytanie było o produkcję, która rzeczywiście wygląda na bardzo samodzielną. Niewiele osób się tam pojawiło, niewiele nazwisk, tak poza nazwiskiem autora, i rzeczywiście wygląda na to, że Jeffrey postąpił jak Tarantino, płacąc za Pulp Fiction pieniędzmi z swojego poprzedniego filmu. Po prostu opłacił w większości produkcji filmu sam, wykorzystując środki pozyskane z wcześniej nakręconego filmu. Rzeczywiście tutaj pojawiło się kilka postaci, ale zasadniczo praca została wykonana, produkcja została wykonana niemal wyłącznie przez autora, co pozwoliło też właśnie taką niezależność w pokazaniu tego materiału, do którego research był bardzo gruntowny. Zresztą ułatwił to też fakt, że sporo tych materiałów było po prostu w wolnym dostępie, jak powiedzielibyśmy, na przykład twórczość dadaistów i tutaj prawa autorskie nie były problematyczne. Rzeczywiście tych materiałów jest dużo.
So thank you again. Movie looks really powerful for me, and I want to ask about one shot. It's curious for me. Is the shot with the balls which are falling down the stairs? Did you made it? Did you made it, or it's from other?
Yes, of course I did. That happened. In fact, it happened. It was. I think the idea was inspired by my assistant Liz Doutzenberg, who I'm still working with, and so we. That came from George's AG gallery. There was an opening at the gallery, and they did this. They actually used dowels, and they flooded the stairs with dowels, preventing the audience from coming into the gallery. It was a Ray Johnson idea, and but somehow the ping pong balls came into play, and Liz was inspired by that, and I think that she suggested to do that on the stairs to the Emily Harvey gallery, and so I thought that would be great. And recently, actually, that piece was invited to the Moyland Museum in Germany for a show, and I think in the fall. The Moyland has the largest collection of Beuys, Joseph Beuys, in the world, I think, and so they suggested that we do the piece there. That's a castle, so and they have towers, so we could do the ping pong cascade in that curvy staircase. I think it would be great, and of course but they will show my film, so thanks for asking that. That's a good point of view. I want to plug my film, okay, that this film is available online on several platforms. And there's some bargain prices, but to me, it's a collector's item. I mean, I don't think I can't remember a really great film about avant-garde art in a feature form. I mean, there's been some dramatic fiction films, but it's a documentary. And George loved documentaries. George really admired documentaries, and Russian documentaries in particular. And so anyway, I'm pushing it. I'm here in Europe now, and it hasn't screened in America. There's one theater in New York, and the programmer there, I'm going to kill him. I don't know why he won't book it, because Jonas Mekas ran the place where he's working. And anyway, I'm a little bit frustrated that because the film is so wide, deep and wide, that it needs to be seen. And I visited. I would like to be seen as many places as possible. It's not just the money. I mean, yes, it would be good to make some cash, but this film has suffered because of the pandemic, as did many, many films. But in art films, it's difficult. It's hard to sell. So I'm trying, and as I said, it is available, and it's a keeper. So said my distributor in New York, and it'll last. It'll last. I don't think there's going to be another one. I don't think there will be another one. Yeah.
Pytanie było o to ujęcie, które Państwo zapewne zapamiętaliście, również z właśnie piłeczkami opadającymi ze schodów. Kiedy pojawia się to pytanie, właśnie nieustanne pytanie o to, czym jest fluxus, definicję fluxusu, Jeffrey powiedział, że był to pomysł jego asystentki, której nazwiska niestety nie zdołam utrzymać przez dłuższy czas w pamięci. I cała scena została zrealizowana w jednej z galerii nowojorskich. Zastanawiam się, czy tłumaczyć autorefleksję artysty nad swoim filmem, który jest takim nietypowym dokumentem. Maciunas uwielbiał dokumenty, jak stwierdził Jeffrey, sam Maciunas, tak w szczególności rosyjskie dokumenty, i ten film rzeczywiście jest takim niedramatyzowanym ujęciem, tutaj stwierdził Jeffrey, wyjątkowym, tak? Bardzo, bardzo nietypowym, bardzo, bardzo wyjątkowym w swym rodzaju.
Dodajmy, że inny materiał właśnie autorstwa Jeffreya Perkinsa będzie można obejrzeć tam w tej części, do której się za chwilę przeniesiemy. Proszę Państwa, kto jeszcze chciałby dopytać? Proszę, tam już podchodzę.
Ja chciałabym bardzo podziękować za ten film i chciałabym zapytać, jak długo Panu zajęło gromadzenie materiałów do tego filmu i jakby od samego pomysłu do skończenia filmu, i czy ten research Pan robił sam, czy miał kogoś do tego? A jeszcze druga część pytania, tak a propos Pana twórczości, bo w tej ulotce możemy przeczytać, że Pan jest członkiem jakiejś psychodelicznej grupy świetlnej. Chciałabym wiedzieć, co to znaczy i na czym to polegało.
Okay. So there are two questions, in fact. One of them, okay, thank you for this movie again. And how long did it take in sum, how much time since the beginning, the very beginning, the idea, till the whole realization?
9 years.
9 years, okay. So 9 lat, so this is the
Normal.
first answer. And the whole research, I mean, did you do it alone or somebody helped you?
Yes, I did all the research. I did the research in those 3 primary archives, and then I knew several of the people that we see. Alison Knowles is a friend, and Larry Miller. Well, you know, several of the people were friends, and they donated, besides their interviews, other things. However, the three archives were the Getty in Los Angeles for the Gene Brown collection, and the Sohm archive in Stuttgart, I think was a big one, and then the Museum of Modern Art in New York, which was the last one.
Tak więc research był właściwie indywidualnie prowadzony właśnie na podstawie 3 archiwów, nowojorskiego, jednego z Los Angeles i jednego ze Stuttgartu, przy pomocy kilku przyjaciół, tak, ich kontaktów. And another question was, because it's information on this flyer that you are also participant of some psychedelic group. Psychedelic group, did I understand?
She is? Well,
No, you. We understood that
I'm
you.
a part of a psychological group?
Psychological.
Is that what the...
About lightning? Świetlnej, tak pani powiedziała? Tak?
Single wing turquoise bird. What does it mean?
What does it mean?
Light group, yes. Psychedelic light group.
Oh, the
single-winged
psychedelic.
turquoise bird.
Yeah, sure. Yes, that happened, definitely. That happened in Los Angeles. I moved to Los Angeles when Yoko and Tony Cox moved to London to be famous, and she already was doing that. But so I went to LA, and I got a job running an experimental movie theater, and expanded cinema was just beginning then. Not big, well, yes, beginning. And a producer, a scholar or a student, whatever, approached me to put together a light show. And so I kind of called for a meeting, and we formed a little collective of about 8 people, and we were hired. We were hired to do light shows for rock and roll concerts in Los Angeles at the Shrine Auditorium. And our first show was supposed to be for the Jimi Hendrix Experience. However, we weren't allowed to do it because it was in the Shrine seated auditorium, and the house wouldn't let us do that. So, but we were there, and I met Jimi Hendrix, and the next show was in a larger hall. So, and that show was for the band called Cream, and that was their only concert in L.A., and also it was great. There were 3 bills, three bands on the bills, and we did. Most of us were filmmakers, so the bigger character of our light show was cinema. However, there were multiple kinds of projections too, but it had a very cinematic look. And then I named the band, or the show was called The Single Wing Turquoise Bird Light Show. That name I discovered in a book of Vedic hymns when we were driving to the poster maker. So we needed a name for this show, and I found that line in this book of Vedic hymns. And I thought, well, that's psychedelic enough. And so we went on to do shows with the Pinnacle Productions for a little over a year. And we did shows for really all of the major bands, including Janis Joplin, including The Who, including the Velvet Underground. We did 2 really good shows with the Velvet Underground. And all of them, the Yardbirds, the Grateful Dead, and other bands from San Francisco. And they were great. I mean, it was a great party. It was a big room, I forget, 4,000 people, and it was a party, and there were concerts, We were projecting a 65-foot by 30-foot screen, triple screening, and far out, it was great. Eventually, the company we worked with went broke, and we moved our show into a tiny shop, a litho studio in Venice, California. And because we had developed this language or stuff, we continued doing the work, but in a very small space. And the painter Sam Francis discovered our work and decided to patronize our work, and it grew. And we then became a art light show, you know, in different art venues and libraries and museums, etc. So that went on, and we were included in the Getty Pacific Standard Time show, which was a big show, and so the band began. You know, those shows at the Shrine, they were spectacular. You know, they were like very widescreen, you know, incredible stuff. We showed, you know, different filmmakers' films in context. Kenneth Anger's film, Inauguration of the Pleasure Dome, was, you know, in back of, like, you know, psychedelic bands. And so we were kind of into the spirit of it, you know. We definitely were, all of us. So the light show, you know, it was psychedelic, and it was not really high art, you see. But at that point, we didn't want high art. We were like beyond all that. But yeah, so that's the light show.
Tak, więc grupa, która zajmowała się w Los Angeles właśnie organizowaniem show dla rozmaitych grup muzycznych, w tym bardzo Państwo słyszeliście znaczących jak The Who, Velvet Underground, Janis Joplin, o ile pamiętam, która po jakimś czasie jednak, tak, o ile rozumiem, przestała działać w takim szerokim zakresie i została zedukowana do takiego niewielkiego projektu działającego w Los Angeles.
It also felt like an extension of Fluxus to me, but it really wasn't. I mean, Fluxus was very kind of Baroque, you know. It definitely had a shape, and because of George's commandments, so to speak, it always had a shape and a kind of a minimalist approach to the performances, although they were wild and who knows what they were, they definitely had a costume of, you know, importantness, like Baroque concerts and things. George was a big fan of Baroque music, and so it kind of bled into the Fluxus madness as well.
No, ta działalność jednak nie może być porównana do Fluxusu. Nie była czymś rodzaju drugiego Fluxusu, ponieważ to był ruch w gruncie rzeczy taki bardzo minimalistyczny tak naprawdę i bardzo w taki konkretny sposób zorganizowany. Mimo że sam Maciunas był fanem muzyki rockowej.
To na zakończenie pytanie, nad czym, Jeffrey, teraz pracujesz?
What are you working on now? What is your next project?
Oh, well, it came out of the George film, in fact, and it's a documentary, I guess. It's becoming weirder and weirder, but I'm working with a philosopher. His name is Henry Flint, and Henry Flint appears in George several times. He talks about the communism. And his comments about that the collectors and like were selling out, and that there was a great critical comments that he made, and that these John Cage and Lamont Young were selling out to the rich, you know, and it was a great critical comment that I had to have. So I've been friends with Henry Flint for a long time, and well, since 1990, and I've produced some lecture series, and Henry, there were 4 Henry Flint, and the musician, thinker, artist Tony Conrad, and they were friends at Harvard. And so Henry is a very extreme philosopher, and I first read his essay. He invented a term. The term is concept art, and he did that in 1961 in Harvard, and he brought that into the Fluxus orb through Lamont Young and George Maciunas, and he was a collaborator with Maciunas as well, and that concept art phrase, affected a generation of artists, Lawrence Weiner and Joseph Kossuth, and a number of conceptual artists, and Henry is he's Teutonic. I mean, he's just he walks the walk. I mean, he's an incredible scholar and a high intellectual, and he's out there, and so I admire him, and I've been recording his lectures since about 1990, and recently I recorded an interview with him, and that was a rare opportunity, and he's into it. He wants me to do this, and I'm kind of following the spirit of myself, and so I'm an independent artist, and have I sold out? Yes, sure. I made the film on San Francisco. That was selling out, and but I loved San Francisco, and I liked the film I made about him too. So I'm trying to stay true to the cause, and the cause is the self, and the whole self and everybody else.
Tak więc współpraca z Henrym Flintem, tak, to jest właśnie ostatni projekt, długotrwały projekt Jeffreya, nagrywanie jego wywiadów. Henry Flint, współpracownik Maciunasa, właśnie człowiek również w orbicie Fluxusu, który pojawił się kilka razy, chyba również w tym filmie, wydaje mi się, nie wychwyciłam tego, ale jeśli mogłam zrozumieć z wypowiedzi Jeffreya. Nagrywanie jego wykładów, które wygłosił we Francji jakiś czas temu, oraz prowadzę teraz właśnie przygotowywanie wywiadu z nim. To jest właśnie ten ostatni projekt Jeffreya.
Trzymamy kciuki za ten projekt. Dziękuję Państwu za udział i zapraszam w takim razie na kolejną część naszego wieczoru z Jeffreyem Perkinsem i Yoko Ono. Jeszcze raz poproszę o brawa dla naszego gościa. Rzadko zdarzają się w naszym kinie artyści z takim doświadczeniem i z taką biografią. Good luck on your project.
Okay. Yeah.
A naszym tłumaczem była dr Małgorzata Lisecka. Też dziękuję.
So Yoko Ono is great, okay? I support her. She's wild, of course, but she's great. She's paid the price, too. She sold out for sure, but it's different.